invited to speak as a speaker. So this is the first time, so hence the cheat sheet, if you guys don't mind. But hopefully today we're going to talk about forgiveness and the power to actually, and the courage to actually do so, like true forgiveness. Okay? I read this book once that says a breakdown is a tipping point that precedes a breakthrough. Right? So we go to the breakdown first before we hit a breakthrough. A couple of years ago, I had a few breakthroughs. So my story today that we're going to be talking about is how I got to the breakdown, and then hopefully my breakthroughs, we can all go home and get something out of it, right? Okay. So when I was younger, it's going to be quick. I know it's going to be younger, but when I was younger, I was very like, I want everything perfect. Okay, I literally am the person who color nothing outside of the line. Like to a point that I would not color it so hard, so if it goes outside the line, I can erase it because it's not perfect now, right? And in retrospect, as I got older, I realized that is because my father, my biological father, left me when I was very young. And so he left his wife, my mother, for his girlfriend. I was 3 and she was pregnant with her second child. So that growing old, slowly, that idea just stuck in my head, right? Honestly, my childhood was great. I mean, maybe not great, but it was not bad. It was comfortable, but because of my mother, not because of him. He was only just there for emergency money if we need it, for school and stuff like that, but nothing else, really. And to be honest with you, I never grew up, I can't remember the time that he even hugged me. First of all, I just wanted to say I'm a very emotional person, so if I start crying, please excuse me. I'm gonna try hard not to because I put mascara today. I really did, that sucks. Okay. So I don't remember. I don't remember him hugging me, telling me he loves me, or looking at me like, how a father would look at his daughter. I don't remember that, right? And when my brother and I migrated to Canada with my mom and with now my stepdad, who really is the only father that I know. He stepped up to the plate and became the father since I was 10 years old. So when I first came to Canada, my brother and I, my biological father would call every birthday, his birthday. His birthday is June, okay? So I was like, he's gonna call me too. My birthday is in August, it's 2 months, right? He never did. Year in and year out, he never called. When he passed away and I was 30, I didn't even cry. I never had that emotional connection to him, So, but at that time too, I had a good life at that time. I had a good husband, I had 2 kids, I had a house, really good jobs. It was okay, or so I thought, right? And then everything crashed. My marriage suffered because of an outside, wait, let me just get the word. Outside interference. So basically it wasn't us, but we suffered. We suffered mentally, we suffered emotionally, my husband and I. That brought us away from each other. He turned his pain inward and stopped communicating with us and my kids. I had 2 kids at that time now. And I suffered depression and high anxiety. Very high, to a point that sometimes I would do something that isn't me, or I would say something that isn't me. And So eventually it divided our marriage, it hurt our marriage, to a point that it's hurting my children, right? We did this for a few years eventually, that we realized we can't do that. We can't have our kids grow up like we did. So we decided to separate, in good terms. No cheating, no gambling, no addiction, nothing. We just decided to say, let's give them a good life away from our marriage. So even now, we're still good friends, right? We're good co-parents. We make decisions for our children together. Sometimes we go on vacations together, but we're just not good together, right? So I guess that was a good thing. However, during that time, obviously, I have a very different way of putting that through because of my childhood, right, in my head. My fear of rejection was like extremely, extremely high after my marriage ended. Now it's my father and now my husband, and I didn't have anywhere to go. And hence, I went again to a depression mode, an anxiety mode. I didn't have anybody to talk to, My first 2 years of being a single parent was crazy hard, really hard. I know some single parents here in the room, and I know you all know how hard that is. But my children grew up well. They're happy. They're well. They're okay now. They're both going. Like my daughter is going to third year university for UT. My son is going to Waterloo this September. They're good, right? And they're okay. But during my recovery, as I recovered in that anxiety, depression mode, that kind of thing, and I was able to put myself, I went back to school, and I graduated university at 35 years old. I graduated 36 years, I graduated at 40. I was old. My classes were like 20s, and then I'm like 36. At first it was weird because, but they were very, very good. And then he focused on his music, so it was okay. Like my ex-husband focused on his music, so everything went okay. And then while in my recovery, I met this guy. I met this guy who seemed to adore me at first glance. He was very good to me. He was very good. But we had a short courtship, really short courtship, and then marriage, But that marriage was my tipping point to a breakdown. I've actually never talked about this to public, so it's hard. It's just my family that know about what he did. But for 3.5 years, 4 years, he loves me, when he's in public. He's so playful and he's so happy. And then when in private, he hates me. He would pick through my mistakes. He would constantly yell at me, like right on my face, literally like this. And saying how words that you wouldn't say to your enemy because then that's rude and mean, But when he's outside, he would say, in front of everybody inside my family, he would say, "Oh, here, I'm so proud of you," And then when I go home, he would really kill me in front of my family, in front of my kids. So really, it's just me and my kids that know all of that. And then he would call me lazy because I only have one job, because I wanted to spend time with my kids when I'm on day off. But the worst thing was he would tell me constantly, and I believed him. That's the worst part. He would tell me constantly that my family does not love me because I'm a horrible daughter, that I'm not a good sister. that actually I was the whole reason that my first marriage failed. That was 3.5 years of that. And I kept it all to myself. I didn't do anything, I stayed. I stayed because I loved him, first of all. You know, I stayed because I believed that I could change him. I stayed because I thought, if I just cook just before he comes to work, that he can have food, then he'll be okay, he'll be happy with me, you know? Or I'll go whenever he wants to go hiking, or we'll buy his very expensive bikes, then he'll be okay. But no, he never did that. That was not enough because that was never really the reason why he married me, right? And also because, to be honest with you, I was always the woman, the kid, and now the woman that was always husband from the beginning. From my father to my first husband to then my second husband. Who remembers my fear? I said it earlier.
Rejection?
Right. My fear of rejection was so huge that I stayed in that marriage. I didn't want people to know that I failed again on my second marriage. I held on for that. And that was my tipping point, right? I had to break down. I had to suffer a lot to actually know what I'm worth. So my breakthrough started in waves, smaller and smaller, and finally hit me big. And my first breakthrough was when he said, okay, I'm leaving now. So I said, okay. I didn't fight him. When he said, I'm leaving now, I didn't fight him. Remember that I love this guy. And I just said yes. And guess what I said? I'll find you a place to stay. I did. And I don't think he actually expected me to say that, to be honest. And he said, okay. That was my first breakthrough, is that I can actually, that guy doesn't have a very strong hold on me anymore. Not anymore, right? Slowly, remember, my waves were slow. Second breakthrough was when he left. I didn't text him, I didn't call him, I didn't say, I miss you, let's go for dinner, let's go for whatever. I never did it. I never did it. Second breakthrough, second wave, is that I actually can say no to my feelings. I realized this guy that I held so high in my life, I could actually say no to. But all this time that I was by myself, trying to recover, I was pretending. I was pretending I was okay. I exercised a lot. I ate very little. I was very stressed because remember, we have a 2-income household, and all of a sudden it's just me, right? My house, everything in that thing was so everything. My savings was dwindling down very fast. I was using my credit line, everything. So the stress was just too much. And then to a point that I developed vertigo. Stress reduced, apparently, according to my doctor. Who has vertigo? Okay, oh, a few of us. So you know how bad it is, right? But the first time it was terrible. It was scary. I had to go to emergency actually. And it was during COVID time. That was 2 years ago. It was during COVID time that we can't have people in emergency. So I was by myself for 4 hours. And you know, our healthcare isn't as quick as we know. But that 4 hours gave me time for myself. That 4 hours, I was so angry because I started crying. It was the first time I cried in that many months. It was the first time I let all that feelings in. I welcomed it. The nurses are probably thinking, what the frick, this guy, like this lady, Like, you just had a vertigo, okay? It's not a life, like, threatening thing. But I started crying. I was angry at him. My God, I was angry at him. And I was angry on myself for letting it happen to me, for letting it happen to my kids. I was angry at my family and friends for not telling me what they really think of him. I was angry at myself again for not believing the people who told me, be cautious. You're so quick. This is a very quick thing, and don't do it. I didn't believe it. So I was angry at that. So overall, that emergency was a blessing, right? Because I had my third wave of breakthrough. And because I realized then that it's not just them that put me into that situation. It's not just my father, it's not just my first husband, not my second. I also have a hand on that. I also made mistakes, right? And that was my breakthrough, and I realized that, well, let me qualify that. It's not my fault that my father is a cheater, was a cheater and decided to go to his girlfriend instead of, and leaving his pregnant wife and his 3-year-old. That's not my fault, right? It's not all my fault that my marriage, we let a good marriage die because of outside interference. Certainly not my fault that I married a narcissistic abuser. Definitely not mine. But I made mistakes too, right? It probably won't make a difference. It probably ended up to be the same. But I did things that I'm not proud of too in that marriage. Maybe not my father's side, but those two marriages. But because I was afraid to lose them. Remember my fear, I was afraid to lose them, so I held on too tight, and in that way, I made mistakes because of that tightness. And also, which is the second breakthrough of that third wave, and this is important. If I put all the blame, all of the problems and challenges that I had because of those 3 men, I'm giving them all the power over me. That means what? That means when they decide to love me, I'm like my life falls apart. That means what? When they decide to leave, that means my whole life now is like in pieces? No, right? They never had it. So why would I blame them, all of it? So taking a part of the blame in that relationships, I took my power back. I've always had it. That was my third and most important breakthrough at that moment. I took my power back. I've always had it, I forgot, I thought, their attention, their love is the only thing that matters. No. So, eventually I had to move out of our house. I found a place, and in September of that year, in Niagara, I still very, very vividly remember this. In Niagara, we had an Indian summer. It was so beautiful. Honestly, if I can do a movie or something and show it to you guys, I can still remember everything. It was Friday night. And I have a dog. I was drinking tea. I was outside the patio. The big humongous tree was outside. I could hear, like the leaves that sways. I could hear the rustling or something. And crickets. It's almost like a movie, I'm telling you, And then there's like this, like a screen door, and then inside was my dining area, and it's like a soft music. My children were in the room. It was beautiful, really. And then I had a panic attack. Yeah, I was just sitting there, and I started I can't breathe. I was losing focus. And I started going in my head, okay, what did I miss? Did I miss something? You know, like, what am I supposed to do? It's Friday. What am I going to do, right? All that time I couldn't breathe. I was having a hard time. And I realized, why? Why was I doing that? Why? No one now in that house will tell me that I'm incompetent because I didn't do what I'm supposed to do. In that house at that moment, no one would tell me how lazy I am because I didn't finish what I'm supposed to do. I'm okay. But my breakthrough was that I realized my body and my mind was not used to being peaceful. It wasn't used to knowing that it's okay, Anna. Breathe, you're okay. That it hits that panic attack. I stayed there for a while actually and cried again. And well, you know, I cry all the time now that you guys know how I am. But that moment too, I had made multiple breakthroughs. I finally forgave myself. Finally forgave myself for the hand that I made in all those challenges in my life. It's okay. I can start over with the right people, the people who loves me and who doesn't put conditions on their love. I forgave him, them, my father. They're mean people. But it's okay, right? Because my other breakthrough is that I would never be here, literally not talking to you guys without that challenges, right? I'm a life coach and I can go to school and listen to the theories and learn the theories. I can learn the skills and give you the skills. But now I have the experience and telling you, I can actually know what you're going through. Because of what they put me through, because of what I did, I have that. And that was my breakthrough. And literally, it stopped. My caring of what other people say about me stopped. My pain stopped. I told my family, I said, if you guys know how peaceful I am right now, you would thank him for leaving me. You would. That's how I qualify that to them, because it was hard for them to understand. So we won't have the time to do all the exercises, unfortunately, but if you have a pen and paper, put it in your notes or in your phone. I have some questions for all of you, and I'm hoping that you guys can do it at home. Suggest that you actually do it. It's very, very simple. So first was, what was the breakdown that eventually led to your breakthrough? We're all here for a reason. We're looking for something, we're open to something, so we have a breakthrough. We're not perfect, our experiences are not perfect. So you had a breakdown that led you to a breakthrough. What was it? How did it happen? And most importantly, what did you learn about yourself? Sometimes the answer will not come easy. It's because our mind and our emotions, our body will just say, you don't have a problem, Anna. You don't have a problem to Kate because you're a victim. But be honest to yourself. Be honest, because you can be honest 100% actually, because it's only you that would know the answer, unless of course you're gonna say it to other people like I just did. But yeah, and I'm gonna close off, hopefully that you guys can have the courage to forgive yourself. Have the courage to free yourself from that kind of past, because that's okay. That's how we are. That's how we grow, right? Okay, I won't have time for questions. Thank you so much.
2 minutes Q&A, so if you guys want to ask
sure.
questions.
Any questions? No? Oh, sure. Linda. I can't hear. Okay, Linda's question is suggestions on how to forgive yourself. Well, first thing is actually acknowledge. Acknowledge that you made a mistake. And that's what I said. It will be the hardest part because now you're actually will put some of the blame on what you did. That would be the first thing. And start blaming and start forgiving yourself is look for people who actually love you, who you are. No matter if you made a mistake, no matter if you were perfect, surround yourself with those people. And then you'll see yourself, your true self, in their eyes. Because our challenges are what makes us, right? Sometimes we lose ourselves in those challenges. We don't see ourselves of how people see us. And what I did was I just surrounded myself with my family, with children, who only the two people that knows who I really was, what I went through. Really mentally and emotionally speaking, they were damaged. They were damaged because my first husband, we never yelled. We never yelled. We never had that kind of toxic marriage. With my second husband, it was all he wanted to do. It was all we did. It was yelling and yelling because that's how he grew up. That was how his norm is. So when my children realized that, they were affected really bad mentally. We got over it as a family, but that was where I got it from them. They were my root. I was always wanting to see me of how they see me. It brings me back to the present, right? So that would be your main goal, is to find the people, surround yourself with that. And then start reading things, start learning about the people who went through some really crappy stuff, because I'm not the only one, you're not the only one. There's a lot of people around us that made great strides in their challenges and is bringing a really amazing stuff to the world. So start learning about those, okay?
Awesome.
Are you okay with it? Okay. Anything else? Yes. Sorry, what was your name?
Christopher.
Christopher.
So, quick question. So, if you have an individual who has done something wrong to you, for
Yes.
instance, how are you able to separate the behavior from the individual in the sense that you were supposed to forgive them? Because there's a situation in my own personal life that there's an individual and I can't forgive them. And I'm holding on to something that's not beneficial for me, but I don't know how to let it go. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. And this was one of the most difficult moments of my life too, of letting go, because to be honest with you, my second husband was not just abusive, but also used me to come here, to get to Canada. He only used me, he literally asked for a divorce separation a month after he got his ER. Okay, so that was, and I gave everything to him. That was painful. What I did was, I didn't separate the person and the behavior and the emotion. What I did was that I looked everything in his side and say, okay, he needed to get here for a reason. It's not excusing his behavior. It's not excusing what he did to me, but seeing him as a person, as someone who must have been wrong in his earlier life, that translates to doing wrong to you. Maybe, you know what I mean? So when I did that, when I realized that it's not really me that is hurting, he's just trying to do what he can in his life. So I started rationalizing that way and seeing myself as not just a victim of his horrendous decision, but also someone who's looking from the outside. Take yourself out, take your pain out, and realize it's like, why did he do that to me? Why did she do that to me? You know? Take your pain and then be objective about it. That's a good start. Okay? You're welcome. Anything else? No? All right, thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Anna.
Thank you. I know I went over my time, but,
You can get hold of Anna,
oh, yeah.
the website, ARE Revolution Academy, she's on Instagram, but also email Anna and Twitter. But later on, you can talk to her privately one-on-one. So, that was very heartfelt, empowering talk. And like something else?
Yeah, so I think that was pretty impactful. I mean, actualization, we've got just forgiving yourself, right, for all of the situation, and that's a big one, I think, especially when you're forgiving yourself, but then you also have to forgive others. That's big, especially when you get hurt by those people. But we have to realize that they're human too, and they have to, they have to deal with their own stuff. So that's lovely, very powerful.
Right. So, hope you guys like it so far. The next speaker that I chose is, she's got a background in yoga. And believe you me, I pretty much messaged 49 people on Facebook, LinkedIn. I wanted a person who understands the yoga philosophy related to the mindfulness meditation. I study different teachings, but I haven't really met too many people who's really in depth in yoga. And that's one of the reasons I chose this person. Because it's just, there's so many commercialized, westernized teachings nowadays that you don't know what's the truth, right? It's passed down, watered down. So that's why I chose the next speaker. She's been around quite some time, teaches meditation, does retreats, she's a world traveler, she's a seeker, she's a yogi. And without any further ado, Julie Boyse, right? AKA Stella.
Namaste.
Namaste.
I'm so grateful to be here, and thank you, John, for inviting me. Bunty. Before we get started, or before I go through my journey, I'd like to do a little check-in. So if you can sit with your feet flat on the floor, and bring your hands into your lap with the palms facing up, and sit up tall in the spine. You can close your eyes. And just take a moment here to check in. Notice how you're feeling. How's the body feeling physically? What's the energy like? Your energy level? Noticing your emotional state. Noticing thoughts. And then noticing the whole being as a whole. Slowly open your eyes. So this is a nice way to bring you into the present moment, and a very nice way for me to center, to be up here talking to you. So thank you for sharing that exercise with me. So I want to share a little bit about my journey and where I've been and what's happened to me. I started in the insurance industry. I was in the insurance industry for 20 years. I was climbing the corporate ladder and putting in more and more hours So a typical day for me was waking up to my alarm at 4:30, checking my emails on my phone before even getting out of bed, getting to work or leaving to work for about 5:30 so I could miss the traffic. I was driving into Toronto actually from Woodstock. I get in around 7 o'clock, perfect time. Nobody's there. I can get a bunch of stuff done before people come and start asking me things or that. I'd I'd eat at my desk if I ate lunch, and then I'd never be able to get out of the office before 4 o'clock, so I'd stay until 6 to pass the traffic time. I get home around 7:38. If I didn't have a work function to attend, I'd eat, go to bed, and the last thing I do before closing my eyes was check my emails. So work was my life, basically, or became my life as I climbed up the ladder. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to do a good job and to prove that I could do the job. So I would take work on vacation, or at the very least, I would check my emails while I was away, so I didn't have so many when I got home. I'd go into work sick, because I'd feel guilty staying home. I see smiles, so I'm thinking maybe this is, have experienced that yourself. So one day I had been working on a new account launch. I was managing a project and the training wasn't going well, like nothing was going right on the project. I had a fever for 3 days, but I was still driving into the office. And it wasn't until I knew for sure that I wasn't gonna meet the deadline that I decided to look after myself. So I went home, sent an email to the team and said, we're not meeting the deadline and I've been sick for 3 days, I need to take a break and we're not. Figure it out, I don't know what to tell you. And I felt super guilty doing that. So later that night, I was talking to my mom and letting her know all the things that were going wrong on the project. And the more I talked to her, the more frustrated I got. And the more frustrated I got, the louder I got. And all of a sudden, I started screaming at the top of my lungs. I had no control. It was like I was standing outside of myself looking in, screaming I wasn't able to stop. I could see my mom was really nervous and upset and worried. My dad, I remember he was sleeping in another room, but I couldn't stop. When the screaming stopped, I collapsed in a chair. I was physically and mentally exhausted. And for the next 2 weeks, it took all I had, energy-wise, to get from my chair, like the living room, to my bedroom, to the bathroom, as it was exhausting. It was like I was running around a block from getting from one room to the other. So I couldn't talk, so that was one of the things that had happened through that period. I couldn't talk. I was communicating by email and text. My senses were heightened dramatically. So if I was sitting and hearing someone eat and the fork touched their plate, it would be so annoying that I thought I was gonna yell at them. I didn't feel like I had control over what I was gonna do or what I was gonna say. I wanted to yell at them and say, stop, and then take their plate and chuck it. I never did that, but I really thought that I was gonna do that. I would cry for no reason. I felt like my world was crashing in, and I slept a lot. But when I was awake, I was working. So imagine that. So I'm working because I have these procedures I need to get done. So this is what's happening as I'm going through. I need to occupy my mind because any time that I was sitting dormant, my mind would go into a negative spiral, and I was afraid of what I was going to do. So once I was able to walk a little bit further and get down the stairs, my dad took me to the doctor. Because I really thought it was a flu or something, right? So when I went to the doctor said I'd had a nervous breakdown. So I had no idea what that meant and really couldn't comprehend that there was actually anything wrong with me. I could work. What else do you need? So I emailed my boss. So I remember emailing my boss saying, okay, so I went to the doctor. She said I had a nervous breakdown. So I'll just keep working from home until I can physically drive into the office. It should be just like a week or two. I had no idea. Later that afternoon, HR called me, Human Resources called me and said, you need to take some time off. I was like, what? I can work, that's fine. I just can't talk very fast and I can't drive into the office. She's like, you've worked here for over 20 years and you have 45 days banked. Take them all. I was like, what am I gonna do? Work's my life. She's like, go visit your nieces and nephews or read a book. I was like, I can't see my nieces and nephews. I'll cry at any moment. I don't want to scare them. Plus, if they annoy me at all, I'm afraid I might hurt them. I can't read a book because I can't focus my awareness on the words. So she said, you know what, finish up what you're working on and we're going to remove your access by the end of the week. So for the next 2 weeks, I watched a lot of movies. That was the only thing that I could do physically or mentally. And that's what kept me out of my head going down that negative rabbit hole. I also started seeing a psychologist, which was the best decision I had made at the time. He was like an independent person who would just listen. I had no idea what I was holding on to and what was creating this breakdown. That was really put nicely, thank you, Anna. I like because it really was, like when I look back at it and think, it wasn't a breakdown. Like, this really was a breakthrough. I'm so grateful for it, and I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have it. So thanks for that nice outline. So, now where was I? So this is the time when I started practicing mindfulness. This is what helped get me out of my mind and into the moment. Kept me out of the regrets that I had from the past and away from the worries that I was having in the future. Another diagnosis they gave me was general anxiety disorder. So constant worrying about how things are going to go, all the different things that come with that. So coming into the present moment was very important to get out of that mind, that monkey mind we call it. So work ahead. So about 3 months later, when I was able to drive again, I started going back to yoga, practicing more meditation. What had happened was my body and mind stopped communicating. So my body's literally saying, Julie, you're sick, stay home. And my mind is like, you're gonna let people down. You gotta do it. You're the only one who can. Go to work. And I can see how it was constant like that through many more years than it came to this particular point, but where I was constantly doing that, back and forth. So work had become my life and I wasn't looking after myself. I was putting myself down. I was being really hard on myself. And in fact, I finally got up the courage to talk to my boss and say, I really can't handle this before. And she's like, can you just hang on for 2 more months? And I was like, of course I can. Like, it didn't last. It wasn't 2 months before this all happened, but like, I had the disease to please. I couldn't say no. So I didn't want to let people down, and I was always afraid of what people were thinking about me. I learned so much through my recovery, and I'm happy to be here to share some of the things that I've learned. I was off for 7 months, but before returning to work, I attended a workshop called Who Am I? With a traveling Swami from India who travels around the world teaching yoga. And that was my ignition, my spark that got me interested in yoga philosophy. So it was not just about the movements and the breathing in yoga, it was also about the philosophy and bringing everything together. So 6 months after returning to work, I was let go. So I spent a lot of time figuring out what I wanted to do, and I kept coming back to yoga, meditation. This is what I was doing, this is what I love to do, this is what helped me through my recovery. I wanted to teach this. So a trip to India on a yoga and Ayurveda retreat, I made my final decision. I got back home and immediately signed up for the Shivananda yoga camp in Quebec for a month in July. And then came back and immediately started at the Buddhist temple in Niagara Falls here for meditation, the 200-hour training. I started teaching yoga and meditation and mantra chanting. I then went back to India and took another 200-hour training. After I got really comfortable with the movements and how it feels in the body and teaching and getting used to that, I could really then focus on the yoga philosophy. So I went back to India and did some yoga philosophy. And then I started taking people back and forth to India on Ayurveda yoga retreats. So I now teach chair yoga at retirement homes and long-term care facilities. And I help with teacher trainings. So during COVID, I was lucky enough to find, to actually study yoga philosophy even deeper. We studied every day for the first 2 years during COVID, and now we're still studying like 2 days a week. So then, the reality is we're being asked to do more with less. We're constantly being stimulated by technology. We're doing more and more and not taking time for a rest. So between work, home, and all the demands and stresses in between, you lose yourself. And that's what happened with me. I lost myself. So we're all getting really good at knowing how important physical exercise is. But what scientists are now proving, and what yogis have known for thousands of years, is that mental exercise is just as important. So, did you know that we have 60,000 thoughts a day? The mind's like a monkey. It's jumping from branch to branch. It's like the mind is jumping from thought to thought. So have you ever driven somewhere and forgotten how you got there?
Yes.
Or you get up to do something and you forget what you were going to do?
Yes.
Then we're lost in the thoughts more on autopilot. So by consciously exercising the mind, it increases our awareness and helps to tame the monkey. So how do we exercise the mind? Through mindfulness, meditation, yoga. So mindfulness to me is being completely aware of what you're doing inside and outside of you while you're doing it, and engaging all your senses. And sometimes reminding yourself what you're doing in the moment. So if you become more aware of what you're doing and feeling, this helps you to notice things earlier. And had I been more in tune with listening to my body, I would have recognized that I needed to stop this job probably a lot sooner than I did. Even when I went back to work, I knew I didn't want to go back there, but I couldn't not have the money. So this was the extra piece to it. Was like I knew I shouldn't go back. It's not good for me, so I decided to put all my passion into outside of what I was doing. And I was just there for the money, working from 9 to 5 or whatever I wasn't working any extra hours when I went back. And taking my lunch fully and away from my desk and going for a walk and sitting and relaxing and not being on high all the time, on the go. So the benefits to mindfulness is being in the present moment, not dwelling on the regrets of the past or the worries of the future. It helped to reduce my emotional reaction. I was able to respond more positively to situations. It can be practiced anytime, whenever you're bringing your senses in. And if your mind wanders, you just bring it back. Just notice it's wandered. Bring it back to the moment. So then, what is meditation? Meditation is the art of slowing down and focusing the mind. So it's like a lake. When the lake is still, you can see the bottom. When your mind is still, you can see your true self. You can live from that place of peace and calm that we naturally are. When it's agitated, when the lake's agitated by waves, you can't see the bottom. And so if our mind is agitated with thoughts, you can't see yourself. It's also described as an engine. If you don't keep the oil changed, the car runs sluggish, right? So same if you're not meditating, then your maybe mind is running sluggish. Or like a piece of furniture that's thick with dust. So the idea is with meditation, you're cleaning the dust or changing the oil, and as soon as you do it once, you can keep it maintained. So, and your mind is so smart, it'll do anything in its power to keep you from meditating when you first start. But don't be discouraged. Just notice what's happening, be aware, accept it, let it go, keep practicing. So, for me, the benefit to meditation is it makes my day smoother, and it adds more hours to my day. Just how it feels like for me. Did you just give me the 5-minute mark? Oh, no. All right, well, I'm at the end anyway, so I really believe, well, I wanted to do an exercise, but maybe we'll have another time. I truly believe that yoga and meditation has saved my life, and I'm really, truly grateful to be on this journey. So thank you all. I do want to do an exercise though. Do you have like another time?
Yes.
Okay. So again, with your legs uncrossed, feet flat on the floor, hands in your lap, sitting up tall. If you can, move your back away from the seat just a little bit. Relax the shoulders, close your eyes, and rest here for a moment. So you can do another check-in here, noticing how you're feeling as a whole. And we're doing exercise where you're moving your awareness to the body parts. So I'll bring your awareness to a body part and just bring your awareness to that area on your body. And notice how it's feeling. So you can bring your awareness to your feet. Ankles. Lower legs. Knees, upper legs, hips, buttocks, the whole back of the body, the whole front of the body or torso area. Fingers, hands, wrists, lower arms, elbows, upper arms. Shoulders, neck, and head. Now noticing the whole body together. Now become aware the body is breathing. Visualize the journey of the breath coming in through the nostrils, touching the back of the throat, into the lungs, expanding the body. And going back out, the body releasing, feeling the air coming back through the nostrils. Notice the parts of the body that are moving as you breathe. Notice the temperature of the air coming in through the nostrils. And notice the temperature of the air going out through the nostrils. Notice if you can hear your breath. Now bringing your awareness back into the room that we're in, noticing the sounds, noticing the temperature of the air, temperature of the body. Visualize where you're seated in the room. Remember the color of clothes you're wearing. Noticing tastes in the mouth. Smells in the air. Taking some deeper breaths. And slowly opening your eyes up. Left page. So those are a few different tools that you can use. The check-in, the body scan, you can use them all together or separately. The breath, connecting with the breath on a visualization, on a feeling, on a just noticing the expansion and relaxation, or connecting with the senses. Any questions?
That's great.